we're gonna do my absolute favorite thing in the world, apart from actually reading books. We're gonna talk about books. Specifically, the books that I read in January of this year. I read 8 books, and in this video, we're gonna talk about it. I am going to tell you what books I read, what they're about, how I felt during reading them, and how I rated them. And then in the end of this video, I want to pick some new books for February. So we're gonna use my brand new prom cocktail shaker, to be honest, that I just created. And we're gonna pick some new books that I'm going to read in February. Like I said, I read 8 books. These are 6/7 of them. You're gonna see in a minute. And then I also read 1 book on my Kobo e-reader. So I'm just gonna start in chronological order and take you along all of the books I read during this month. And the first one is this one, The Night Circus. So the first book I read in 2025 was The Night Circus by Eric Morgenstern. And this book I got for Christmas for my boyfriend, so I was super excited to read it. And I was really hoping it to be a 5-star, because one of my best friends, she loved this book. That's also the reason that my boyfriend bought it, because he asked her which book he should buy me, and she recommended this one. So The Night Circus is about a circus that mysteriously appears in specific cities around the world, and then within a few days or weeks, I don't think they mention how long the city is in town each time, but probably a few days, and then it mysteriously disappears again. The story is also about 2 magicians both pick a contender, because they have some sort of game going on between the 2 of them, and they want to battle with their contenders. So they each pick 1 young contender that they're gonna teach magic to, and these contenders at some point in their life have to play a game against each other. It's not clear what the winner will actually win. It's not clear how the game is gonna go, when it's gonna take place, where it's gonna take place, but they only know that at some point in their lives they do have to play a game against each other. They also don't know who the other contender is, by the way. Yeah, a lot of things that we don't know yet, that they don't know yet, but those 2 things are very important. So the 2 young contenders that at some point have to play the game in their life, and then the circus that magically appears and disappears every few weeks in a different town. During the book, we read about those 2 contenders and how the circus is created, and we follow many characters that are linked to the circus. So actually all of them work in the circus, I think, or with the circus, or are somehow connected to the circus. And we have many point of views, so we switch between many characters, but there are some obviously main characters in the book that we follow more. Sounds very mysterious, and for me the book was very mysterious. Not necessarily what we read about, although there was a lot of magic involved, but the writing style was very mysterious. So for me, this felt like reading a fairy tale and just being sucked in a magical world that we could read about. During the book, like, weird things happen that we can explain and that the characters can't necessarily explain. For me, this was like reading a puzzle or a quiz, because along with the characters you can guess at what is going on, why the circus was created, how it is kept alive, just all the mysteries of the circus you can read about, and you can puzzle or try to figure it out at least. This was also the first book I ever annotated. As you can tell, I have all these sticky notes here and just marked different quotes with my markers, with my highlighters, and this was the first book I ever annotated, and I'm so glad that I did that, because for me it made it so much more fun to like play the game of this book and try to guess at where it was going, what was gonna happen, just trying to figure out the mysteries of this book, and annotating the book made that so much more fun. Okay, so after reading this book, I was confused, because you feel like it's going somewhere and then it wasn't necessarily going that way. The end was also a bit of a mystery, to be honest. After reading this book, I was sitting next to Wes, my boyfriend, who got me this book, and I was like, I don't know how I'm going to rate this book. Like, I generally had no idea, and normally when I say that, it's between maybe a 3 or 4 star or a 4 and a 4.5 star. However, this could have been a 3, maybe even a 2 star. It could also be a 5 star. After reading it, I still had no clue how I was gonna rate this book. So what I did, I took, I think, literally an hour to think about this book and go back through all of the highlights that I did, all of the things that I marked. And I went back in the book and read through all of those passages. The weird thing that happened is, as I went through the book and read all of the things that I highlighted, I found quotes that described my feeling at that point to the dot. So I want to read some quotes to you. There aren't spoilers, obviously. I don't want to give spoilers in these videos. But they're just descriptions about the circus and how the visitors and the people that work there experienced the circus. I'm going to read them from my phone because I put those in my Goodreads review. There are tents I am certain that I have not discovered in my many visits to the circus. Though I have seen a great deal of the sights, traveled a number of the available paths, there are always corners that remain unexplored, doors that remain unopened. Another quote: the night that seemed endless hours before is now slipping through your slipping from your fingers, tipping by as it falls into the past. And then the last quote I wrote down: there are so many places to begin, so many elements to consider. He wonders if the poem of the circus could possibly be bottled. And especially that last one, he wonders if the poem of the circus could possibly be bottled. For me, that is exactly how I felt after reading this book, and for me what the book is about. Like, constantly wondering, constantly trying to figure it out, constantly wanting to, I don't know, find out more, to continue. And that's the exact feeling that I was left with after the book, like wanting more. Like, there were still mysteries and I wanted to find out what those mysteries were, and it was kind of frustrating. But reading those quotes back after I finished the book made me realize that this book is an actual masterpiece, because Erin Morgenstern, she is an absolute magician with her words. And I feel like that's what writing is about. This is such a good book, even though directly after reading it I didn't know yet. But going back through all of the things I annotated made me realize how good of a book this is. It is mysterious, it is confusing, chaotic sometimes even, and not all of the mysteries are clear at the end. But yeah, for me this is such a beautiful book because of the deeper layer of it, and how Erin, could make me feel a certain way with the words she chose. Then, as the second book of January, I read Kingdom of the Wicked by Carrie Maniscalco, if I say that correctly, on my e-reader. Here it is. I have the full trilogy on my e-reader, but I only read the first book yet, Kingdom of the Wicked. And the reason I read that is because I bought this book a few months ago when I was in San Diego. That was my first time ever in the US, and one thing I really wanted to do there was go to Barnes & Noble's, visit Barnes & Noble's and buy a Barnes & Noble's exclusive book, because books aren't necessarily cheaper in the US. They're cheaper here, like UK books are cheaper and we can buy UK books in the Netherlands. So, but I did know that Barnes & Noble had a lot of exclusive editions that we cannot buy here. So I really wanted to take home a Barnes & Noble exclusive book with me. And then I found this particular book, Throne of the Fallen, by the same author, Carrie Maniscalco. Maniscalco? Please tell me how I say this. Anyway, bought this book, absolutely gorgeous book with purple sprayed edges. This book is normally black and I don't like books with black covers. I just love to have color in my bookshelf. However, after I bought it, took it home with me to the Netherlands, I found out that this series, that this is the first book of, is a spin-off of Kingdom of the Wicked. So I haven't read this yet, because then I decided I need to read Kingdom of the Wicked first. So, second book of 2025 was Kingdom of the Wicked for me. And Kingdom of the Wicked is about a witch, or a coven of witches, because there are a lot of witches involved, but particularly one witch, and her sister is killed very early in the book. That is also something that's on the cover, so it's not a spoiler. Her sister is, she's twin by the way. They're both twins, they're each other's twin. Anyway, and her twin sister is killed very early in the book, and she and her sister were always made scared. Their grandmother always scared them by telling stories of the 7 brothers of hell, basically, and that those 7 brothers are demons and will try to lure you to the dark side, and if you do, bad things are going to happen. But after her sister is unalived, she sort of, well, she reclaims herself because she wants to figure out what happened. Normally she doesn't do a lot of magic, she is very sweet, she stays away from it, but at that point in her life she's like, absolutely not, I'm going to figure out what happened and I'm going to make this right. I'm going to get vengeance, and whoever did this is gonna get what he deserves, and I'm going to make sure of it. She's like that. But then in her path of getting that vengeance, she is connected to one of those brothers of hell. And yeah, what else is going to happen, I'm not going to tell you because I don't want to give spoilers, but it was alright. One thing I really liked about this book is that it was located in southern Italy, and I don't feel like I've ever read like a fantasy witchy book that was located in Europe, but especially not in Italy. While Italy has so many history, and that history was also included in the book. The history of their covens and the witches before her was also included in the book, and I really liked that part. It made the story a lot less flat and a lot deeper. The storylines and the world building was just exceptionally good for a witch book. Like, I feel like fantasies tend to have a lot of world building. However, romance books about witches do not tend to have that. But this fantasy, which was about witches, had so many deeper layers and so many history into the book, and it's such a good world building. Oh my god, you guys, I'm tired. So that was something that really surprised me in the book, and overall I did really enjoy her journey through this. I really enjoyed the connections in the book. It was light to read, medium paced, easy to read especially, but there was also that deeper layer, so I really liked it. So, may not be too much of a surprise, but I definitely gave this 5 stars as well, and I cannot wait to read the rest of the series and then eventually read Throne of the Fallen, because this book is absolutely gorgeous. I'm so sad though that I may never be able to buy the other books in this series with the exact same cover, because this is so pretty. Oh, absolutely love it. After reading The Night Circus and then Kingdom of the Wicked, I was in need of a lighter romance book. However, that is not what I did, because for me January was mostly about Fourth Wing, like reading books wise. It was the month of Onyx Storm, the month that Onyx Storm was released at the 21st of January. And before Onyx Storm was released, I really wanted to reread Fourth Wing and Iron Flame. So that's what I did. So my third book of the year was Fourth Wing. This was the 3rd time I read this book. The first time I read it was in 2023. And then last year, before Iron Flame was released, I reread Fourth Wing, and now I reread Fourth Wing and Iron Flame, if you're still following this, before Onyx Storm was released. So Fourth Wing was my 3rd book of the year, although it was a reread. But like I said, I just started annotating books this month, so I decided to annotate Fourth Wing as well for the first time. I don't have any sticky notes in here, but I did mark some things in here because I forgot to take my sticky notes with me to my boyfriend where I read this book. However, I did mark a few things, and this was the perfect book. This is the perfect book and series to annotate for me, because there are so many clues and so many mysteries that we still have to find out about. And during my rereads, like after reading Iron Flame, there were so many hints in this first book that were made clear in Iron Flame, but after reading Onyx Storm, I'm gonna get there, little spoiler, there were again a lot of things that were hinted at in this first book. So I feel like she wrote the perfect world, basically. And Rebecca Yarros, I feel like when writing Fourth Wing, she already figured out how the rest of the series is gonna go, and you can really tell that she did a good job at that by reading these books, because there are so many hints that will not make sense until we get, I think, until we even read the 5th book of the Empyrean. So however, reread this book and absolutely fell in love with it again. Even after reading it for the 3rd time, it's still a 5-star for me. I still enjoyed reading this book. I had such a good time. Even though I knew the ending, it was still such a good read for me. I love the romance, I love the tension. I feel like this is the more lovey-dovey light book of the series so far, but such a good book to get into the series and also to get into the romantasy genre. However, after reading Fourth Wing, I definitely needed a lighter, fluffier romance, and that's what I did in this case. So I read Of the Races by Elsie Silver, which is from the Gold Rush Reigns series, and this is the last series of hers that I haven't read yet. I did read her other series. I always forget the names. The Chestnut Spring series, I have it on my shelf right there, and then also the Rose Hill series that she's still writing. But the first 2 of those, Wild Love and Wild Eyes, I both read. So this is the last series that I didn't read yet of Elsie Silver, so I really wanted to start it. And this is Of the Races, obviously the first book in the series. This is, well, mostly like any Elsie Silver book. It's a cowboy romance. It's set in a small town in Canada. I love that it's in Canada and not in somewhere in the USA, because I love Canada. Just in a small town on a range, and it's about a man that his grandfather, it's his grandfather, right? Yeah, his grandfather just passed away, and there are many rumors that his grandfather was doing some shady business, because they're in the horse race business, and there are rumors that his granddad cheated in the horse races. So paid a lot of money to let his horses win and to make a lot of money, obviously. So Vaughn, the man in this book, he wants to right those wrongs because he believes that his granddad is innocent, basically. So he takes over the horse part of the business, the horse racing part. And they have this one horse that is an absolute pain in the ass that nobody wants to work with. The horse is mean, he's biting people, he's kicking people, so nobody wants to work with him. But it's supposed to be a good horse for horse racing, and they invested a lot of money into that specific horse. So Vaughn gets a new business partner, and that business partner tells him, you need Billy for the job. So Vaughn hires Billy, and then to his surprise, Billy isn't a man, Billy is a woman. And obviously we go from there. So she's the horse trainer and it's his range, and yeah, well, we all know they're gonna fall in love, and they did. So the story is about Vaughn and Billy, and I really liked it. I feel like Elsie Silver, well, to me, she's the queen of cowboy romances and small town romances, and she always creates this setting that is just perfect, like the perfect small towns, the perfect ranges. It's just the perfect setting. She can write anything and I would read it. However, I love many of her books. One in particular in the Chestnut Spring series I didn't like. I feel like it was the last book of the series. Didn't necessarily like that, so that was a 3-star for me, but most of the other books are either a 4 or a 5-star for me. This wasn't one of the best books she wrote, I feel like, but this was also the first book she wrote, so that makes sense. I feel like after this series she probably was a little bit more used to it and it was easier for her to write Chestnut Spring series and then the Rose Hill series. But it definitely was a good read, so I gave this a 4-star. Then after I read Off to the Races, I read Out of the Gates. That's a novella that is basically a prequel to Off the Races, and it's the story of Vaughn's granddad and how his granddad met his wife and basically how the family business all started, because the wife, so his grandma, was initially the person that really wanted to get into horse racing, and that's why they started this business. The novella is, luckily for me, in this book, it's the last 100 pages of this edition, so I was able to immediately continue into the prequel, Out of the Gates. I feel like you could read the prequel before Off to the Races, but I think I preferred it this way because after reading Off to the Races, you are more curious to the granddad because he isn't portrayed in the best way. As a granddad, yes, but not as a business owner. He did some shady things. But then when you get into Out of the Gates, after Off the Races, you just fall in love with the granddad and his wife and how they started this business and how they fell in love. So yeah, I feel like that was the right order to read these two. And I gave Off to the Races 4 stars, and I gave 4 stars to the novella as well. Novellas are almost never a 5-star for me because they're so short. I feel like there isn't a lot of depth in a novella. But for a novella, this was a pretty good novella. It was only 100 pages, around that. But I really liked it as a prequel, as a insight in how it all started. Then after my Elsie Silver books, it was time for Iron Flame. My Iron Flame reread, obviously, because I read it before when it was released. But it was time to reread this thick son of a bee. And just as Fort Wing, I loved rereading this. It was just as entertaining as the first time I read it. Although, so we continue in the story of Violet and the war school. And in Iron Flame, I mean, in Fort Wing, it's more lovey-dovey and just like an intro into fantasy and romantasy. With this, you're even further introduced into fantasy because this book has a lot more war and fighting and tactics and political things. For me, this isn't as good as Fort Wing, and I feel like, as you can tell, it's thicker, but I don't feel like more happens in the story. So I think there's more world building and a lot more political stuff, but in the end, not enough happened for this amount of pages. But it is still really good because I love how their romance deepens into this story, and their bond is just so much stronger. And now it's an actual romance instead of just a flirt, which I feel like their relationship was more of a flirt in Fort Wayne, and in this it actually starts to be a romantic connection. I feel like fantasy books can be a little bit of a puzzle, and it's all about finding the right hints. I mean, you don't have to, you can just read it without trying to figure out the story, but that's just me, that's my personality. I just really want to figure things out and understand how they work. So annotating this is so much fun because you get to actually search for hints and save them to go back to later when it all starts to make sense. So I really like doing that, and that did make this book maybe even better for me, because the first time I read Iron Flame, I gave it a 4-star. It is still a 4-star to me because I definitely feel like it's less good than Fort Wing, but I did like it the second time more. And then after that, it was finally the 21st of January and Onyx Storm was released, and I did already make a reading vlog when I wrote this book. Well, I wrote the ebook, but I also have the hard copy now. I did make a reading vlog of that one, so if you want like my full live reactions to reading this book and my first response after reading the book and my first review, definitely check out that video because that's much more in-depth than I could ever give you right now in this video. However, just one thing I am going to say is this could have been a 6 star. The book was absolute perfection for me. I feel like I said, Iron Flame for me was not enough happened in the story for me to read that amount of pages, but so much happened in this book. Like, it was a roller coaster. It was absolutely a ride, a wild ride. So many things happened. I kept from laughing so loud within a few pages to crying, or almost crying, or being in shock. Like, it was up and down all the time, and for me, I feel like that was intentional of Rebecca Yarros, and therefore I really liked it, and therefore it was really good. Because in the end, it wasn't, reading the story, the plot wasn't all over the place. It still made sense. I still really liked it. But the ending did ruin it slightly for me. I didn't like the last 3 chapters, but you have to find that out for yourself. I was a little bit confused after reading it because of those final chapters. And therefore, like, everything else was perfection. So it could have been a 6 star for me, like one of my absolute favorites. But it's a 5 star now. I definitely feel like it was better than Fourth Wing though. And then again, I needed something light, something fluffy, something romantic to read after Iron Flame and Onyx Storm. Because like I said, that was a ride. So I needed something light, and that was Ever After Always from Chloe Lisa. This is the Bergman brother series, although this is about a woman, so about a Bergman sister novel, it says on the cover. I have the first book in the series and then the third book in the series. I don't have the second. That was maybe a tiny bit of an error when buying those books at the works last year, because I didn't realize that it was a first and a third in a series, even though it says so big on the cover. Look, it's so big. And I still didn't see it. However, I read the first one, and to be honest, the first one in this series really surprised me. I don't even remember what it's called. Oh, Only When It's Us. I do have that on my bookshelf, and that one really surprised me. So I was like, I really want to continue the series, but I did skip the second because now that I know it's a series of 7 books, I know for sure I'm not going to buy the remaining 5 books in this series, because the cover, it's cute, but it's not like, I don't necessarily need 7 books of this on my bookshelf. So I know for a fact I'm not going to buy the remaining 5 books. I might read them on my e-reader, but I was just like, you know what, I just want to read the third one already. Even though it's a series, you can read them alone. There are hints towards the second book, obviously. But I feel like with romance, I don't necessarily mind that, because when you start reading a romance book, you already know they're gonna fall in love. So right now, I only know from the second book that the people in the second book are gonna fall in love. That's all I know. And I knew that anyway, because it's a romance. So I didn't mind skipping the second book, and I went straight into the third book. I did like it less, because this is about one of the Bergman sisters, Freya, and she has been together with Aiden for almost 10 years. They're married for almost 10 years, but they are having relationship issues, intimacy issues, relationship issues. Their marriage isn't what it was and what they want it to be, and you read about how they try to figure that out, try to fix it, and try to fix their own mental problems as much as you can ever fix those. But just basically how they get back to each other. They're going on a family trip and they're trying to hide their issues. So that's the fun part in that. I did like it a little less than the first one in the series. It was a fun book, but nothing too special for me. Just a light, fun read. Especially what I needed after Iron Flame and Onyx Storm. But yeah, I have to say it wasn't anything too special, like not a favorite for me. So I gave this 3.25? Yeah, 3.25 stars. Oddly specific, but I can't help it. And those are the 8 books that I read in January. Right now I am reading, where do I have my copy? Assistant to the Villain. I think it's in my bag. I already started that in January, but I know for a fact I'm not going to finish it. I'm recording this on the 30th of January. I know I'm not going to finish Assistant to the Villain this month, so that is a book that I'm going to discuss with you after February. But that is my first read of February. I thought it would be fun to pick some new books with you guys that I'm going to read in February, and I'm going to do that with this prompt jar / prompt cocktail shaker. I eat up those videos, those prompt jar videos on YouTube. I love to see how others pick a prompt and then pick a book that connects with that prompt. So basically what I'm going to do, I have around 40 cards in here, I think, all with a different prompt. So for example, book with a yellow cover, book with a one-word title, book that is the longest on my TBR, book that was released 5+ years ago. All of those prompts, they're in here. I'm going to pick some and then based on that pick the books that I'm going to read in February. I do have to say, I am an absolute mood reader, so I read whatever I'm in the mood for. So I do not want to pick too many prompts because I also want there to be space to read based on my mood. So I figured out I am going to pick 3 prompts. So based on that, I'm going to pick 3 books that I'm going to read in February, and then any other book I'm going to read in February is just going to be based on my mood. So here we go. We are going to pick 3, but one at a time, obviously. I'm just going to pick the first one I see. I created all of those, but I have no idea what's on what paper, honestly. So here we go. What does it say? Ooh, I don't know if I have any. It says a one letter word title. I wrote this incorrectly. I meant a one-word title. Well, I made that incredibly hard for myself, but I meant one-word title. So we're gonna see if I do have any on my TBR. I don't even know. A one-word title. Yeah, Icebreaker and Daydream, but I've already read those. No. I've already read God Killer, Reckless, Powerless. Ooh, I could read the next one in the Never After series. Wretched is the one I'm going to read next. Is there anything over here? No, because over here I've only not read this one, and that's The Prospect, so that's a 2-word title. And I've already read Light Lark. No, I feel like that's it. Oh, I could read Bunny. No, I'm gonna go with Wretched. Next book I'm going to pick is, here we go. What does it say? Is it upside down? Yeah. Oh my gosh. Oh, a book you've been putting off. Okay, a book I've been putting off. No, but this is good because I don't necessarily have like a reading goal for this year, except for the fact that I want to lower the number of my physical TBR. I'm at 40 right now, 40, 45. And I know in a month I'm going to Edinburgh and I'm going to buy lots of books, so that number is gonna... but then I want to lower that number again, because at the end I only want to keep like 30 to 40 unread books in my house. So I need to read my physical TBR. So a book I've been putting off. Okay, well we just spoke about this book, but Bunny is definitely a book I've been putting off. And then this is also a thriller that I've been putting off slightly. But Bunny more? Oh, this is also a book I've been putting off, even though I bought it myself. We Could Be So Good. It's a queer romance, I believe. Well, nothing over here, because these are all books that I really want to read. That's why they're on this shelf. Yeah, no, I think I'm gonna go with Bunny. Okay, final one. Here we go. Ooh, this is a fun one. A book with a white title. So not necessarily a white cover, but the letters have to be white. I don't even know if I have this, but I'm going to take a look on my bookshelf. Okay, ooh, these are right. Oh, but not on the actual cover. I feel like it has to be white on the actual cover. Otherwise, I could have read part 2 of this series. I need to read Cut Up. Is that white, please? This counts as white, right? Ooh, because I do need to read this and I really want to read this. Let's see if there's anything else. The Witch is Back. That's also white. No, this isn't. There's anything white. Also not over here. None that I haven't read yet. Oh, or maybe Morbidly Yours. Yeah, that's also white. I haven't read that as well. I'm leaning towards Caught Up, but is this white, you guys? Because it's gold and white. Does this count? I don't know. Let me know if you think this counts. You know what? I'm just gonna be sure and pick Morbidly Yours, because that's also high on my list. This is one of the last books I bought. But I might end up reading Caught Up anyway, because that's very high on my TBR. I mean, I'm going to read that anyway soon, I feel like. So that's why I'm picking Morbidly Yours, which I bought secondhand, by the way. Very curious. One of my besties read this and she said it was pretty amusing. Like, not a very high rating, but just amusing, fun little reads. So these are the books I am definitely going to be reading in February. And I feel like I'm happy with the books that I chose, because this is a book I've been putting off, but I still really want to read it. And then these 2 books I'm actually really excited about to read. So this isn't a bad pick at all. So that was my yep about my January books video. I hope you liked listening to me, to hearing me yep about books. I certainly did like talk about books. So if you like this video, please do a thumbs up. You would absolutely help me with that. And then also subscribe to this channel if you like my videos. I'm going to be seeing you soon on a new video. Until then, keep on reading. See you soon. Bye.